Over the years, we've witnessed numerous instances where a deck is elevated from obscurity into competitive success after a single wave of support. So in this video, we're going to cover some of the strongest archetype-specific cards that put decks on the meta on their own. And at number 10, we have Exosister Martha. This is a level 4 spellcaster with the summoning effect of, if you control no monsters or only Xyz monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, special summon one Exosister Ellis from your deck. Also, if a card is moved from either graveyard, you can special summon an Exosister Xyz using only this card as a material. Before Martha, the primary glaring flaw with the Exosister deck was the absence of a 1-card combo. With only 4 Exosister names available, and only 2 that added bodies without your normal summon, the deck was highly susceptible to interruption and had few options for combo extension. Martha was released as the perfect remedy for the deck. She allows this strategy to Xyz summon without utilizing a normal summon. Merely by activating her, you acquire a 1-card setup to any of the Exosister Xyz monsters that can help you complete your setup for your opponent's turn. Another subtle distinction that demonstrates how this card was designed to salvage the deck is her trigger condition. While every other Exosister shares the text, if your opponent moves a card from their graveyard, Martha is the only one that states if a card moves out of either graveyard. This means you can trigger your own Martha by using the effect of Exosister Michaelis to banish, or even by just using Called by the Grave on a hand trap. It does not occur constantly, but when it does, it is likely the difference between accessing the deck's true boss monster, Exosister Magnifica, or passing turn. Exosister Martha is the baseline for a second wave card that addresses a deck's issues while simultaneously raising its ceiling, and that is why she earns a number 10 spot on our list. And at number 9, we have Spiritual Beast Tamer Lara. This is a level 1 light psychic with the following effect. You can discard this card to immediately normal summon 1 Ritual Beast monster from your hand. Additionally, if a Ritual Beast card you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard instead. Lastly, if this card is banished, you can special summon 1 Ritual Beast monster from your deck. Ritual Beast is a fusion deck that operates by banishing its own cards. All of their fusion monsters can be summoned by banishing monsters you control or in the graveyard, and the fusion effects return the banished monsters to the field. Spiritual Beast Tamer Lara was a vital piece of extension for the deck. She is able to fulfill the summoning conditions while fielding other monsters, and her extra normal summon effect is crucial since the Tamers have their effects tied to their normal summons. This new Lara essentially supercharged the deck, providing you with enough bodies that reaching their also new Link 4 became completely trivial. Due to the summoning conditions of Ritual Beast Ultio no Chio Drago, you are also guaranteed to trigger her banish effect for an emergency teleport from the deck as well. To top this all off, since she returns to your graveyard as combo, she remains there during your opponent's turn, protecting you from various board breakers. Another factor that worked in the favor of Ritual Beasts at the time was their ability to main deck Dimensional Shifter and a Dimensional Fissure. Lara is naturally even more potent alongside them, as she essentially reads discard this card, get an extra normal summon, and summon any monster from the deck while those floodgates are active. You are not sacrificing protection either, since Ritual Beast cards rarely remain banished, as their fusions will return her to the graveyard regardless. Acquiring a Lara could put almost any normal summon reliant archetype back on the map. And now for number 8, we have Mansion of the Dreadful Dolls. This is a field spell that, when activated, adds 1 Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, it lets you detach 1 material from an Xyz monster, target 1 Gimmick Puppet monster in your graveyard, and special summon it to your opponent's field. Lastly, it has an effect that makes your Gimmick Puppet monsters indestructible by battle and unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters, except Xyz monsters. With this card, it seems like someone wished for Gimmick Puppets to finally be competitively viable, but the monkey paw curled. This card shifted the archetype from being mediocre to becoming an extremely consistent and uninteractive FTK deck. Mansion of the Dreadful Dolls is another instance of a do-everything card. The main strategy of Gimmick Puppets revolves around inflicting massive burn damage on turn 1. They achieve this by summoning their own monsters to their opponent's side of the field with CXC's Gimmick Puppet Fanatics Machinix and the field spell on the list, Mansion of the Dreadful Dolls. With a monster now in the opponent's field, number 15 Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder and number C15 Gimmick Puppet Giant Hunter can utilize their effects to destroy those monsters and inflict burn damage. These two can typically deal 6,000 damage alone. To finish the game, number C40 Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings can destroy monsters on your side of the field to deal damage equal to the highest attack. While this deck also received a card similar to Martha and Gimmick Puppet Rogue Doll, the field spell is arguably more significant. You can imagine how toxic this strategy becomes when all the monsters mentioned above are also unaffected by monster effects. The ability to ignore most monster hand traps is unmatched for a deck attempting to win on the first turn. Fortunately, the deck is still vulnerable to some hand traps with lingering effects like Mulcharmy Fuelos or Drone Lockbird, and decks that can run Dominus Impulse or Dominus Purge can still contest the combo. However, the level of consistency and protection one card offers in Mansion of the Dreadful Dolls makes it a strong contender for this list, and because of it, we now have a couple of Gimmick Puppet cards limited on the ban list. And at number 7, we have Altergeist Multifaker. This is a level 3 Dark Spellcaster with the following effects. If you activate a trap card, you can special summon this card from your hand. If special summoned this way, you can special summon an Altergeist monster from your deck in defense position, except another copy of itself. But you can only special summon Altergeist monsters the turn you use this effect. Altergeist was released in the TCG at the beginning of the Link era. Upon release, the deck lacked board presence, seeing only minor experimentation with the Invoked and Spellbook engines to very limited success. It was only the following year, when Altergeist Multifaker was released, that the deck managed to stand on its own anthropod legs. This allowed much easier access to the Archetype's Interruption via Altergeist Conquery and Altergeist Silquitous, who can negate and bounce one of your opponent's cards respectively. It is also a one-card method to access Altergeist Hextia, which is a negate that floats into any Altergeist. The card also possesses a unique interaction with Infinite Impermanence. If you, for example, are going second and have both Impermanence and Multifaker in hand, you can activate Imperm to negate a card on field. Immediately after it resolves, you can special summon Multifaker from your hand and special summon Altergeist Silquitous from your deck. With this, you have initialized your engine and set up a bounce on your opponent's turn before you've even started your own. Furthermore, Silquitous bouncing your Multifaker ensures you're prepared to do it again next turn. The Imperm Faker interaction was once a ridiculously strong combo that would single-handedly win matches. You can think of it as the equivalent of Dragotel Femina or Tearlament's Havness in the current day. Faker also paired excellently with Evenly Matched, another popular card at the time. Your opponent gets their field wipe? Alright, on resolution, activate Faker and get your entire engine started to rub even more salt into the wound. Altergeist Multifaker is a prime example of a card that managed to connect all the strong individual cards of an archetype into a solid strategy. And at number 6, we have Kashtira Arise-Heart. This is a rank 7 Machine Xyz monster with 3000 attack and defense, which requires 3 level 7 monsters to summon. It mandates that any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. And once per chain, if a card is banished, you can attach one banished card to this card as a material. Finally, once per turn as a quick effect, you can detach 3 materials from this card to target one card in the field and banish it face down. You can also simply rank him up on top of any other Kashtira monster if a Kashtira Shangri-La activated its effect this turn. The timing in which Kashtira Arise-Heart was released felt like a direct response to the dominance of Tearlaments at the time. A walking macrocosmos with a laughably simple summoning condition was enough to suffocate almost any graveyard deck. Upon release, the deck had access to what was essentially an FTK with a combination of Diabolus the Mind Hacker and Kashtira Shangri-La, locking all the monsters and spell and trap card zones out of the game. This strategy was only legal for about 3 months. After this period, Kashtira transformed into a Protect the Arise-Heart strategy. While simple, this Protect the Castle playstyle could be incredibly potent. All the Kashtira monsters, besides Kashtira Arise-Heart, are level 7s that can special summon themselves and possess over 2000 attack. Combining them with a rank 7 Xyz pool, the deck could be a threat even when going second. Big Eye and Dark Arm the Drag of Annihilation excelled at board breaking, and since the deck rarely utilized a normal summon, Lava Golem became a very popular option. This version of Kashtira had a straightforward yet powerful game plan. To protect Arise-Heart, the deck often played 3 copies of Forbidden Lands to make it unaffected by spell and traps. It also had access to unique interaction with Pot of Prosperity. Remember that face-down cards cannot be Xyz materials, but Arise-Heart has an effect to attach one banished card each time a card is banished. This means that if you target one of your cards banished face down by Prosperity, they would be attached face up. With this in mind, there were some Prosperity targets that could grant you extra effects to your Arise-Heart, such as Infinite Track Goliath, which prevents destruction by card effects when attached to a machine, or Elder Entity Natis to destroy a card on the field if your Arise-Heart gets removed. As long as there are new decks that rely on the graveyard, like Dracotel, Kashtira Arise-Heart will be an option that can instantly win games, so we will likely never see him released from the ban list. And at number 5, we have Ame no Habakiri no Mitsurugi. This is a level 8 ritual reptile monster. You can reveal this card in your hand to special summon one Mitsurugi monster from your deck, then tribute one monster you control, but this effect is only usable once per duel. If this card is tributed, you can add one Mitsurugi card from your deck to your hand. Then you can special summon this card. Lastly, while it's on the field, monsters your opponent control lose 800 attack. Just activating Habakiri leads to a full combo that sets up the archetype's boss monster, Murakumo, as well as a multitude of extra bodies, infinite follow-up, and even an Omni-Negate. By summoning Mitsurugi no Mikoto Saji from the deck, Saji will trigger when tributed to search the Mitsurugi ritual spell. This spell is essentially a branded fusion for rituals, letting you summon the same Habakiri from your hand using monsters from your deck as materials. From there, you can choose between tributing another Mitsurugi ritual or any 2 level 4 reptiles, all of which will trigger in your graveyard to net you even more advantage and continue your combo. Though it is not as easy to access as Fiendsmith was back when Moon was legal, one of the best parts about this engine is how accessible it is. Even with the Ryziel version of the deck gone, thanks to a swift ban of King of the Feral Imps, other decks can still use the Mitsurugi engine, making Herald of the Arc Light, who searches any ritual when sent to the graveyard. At the time of writing, the contender for the best deck of the format, Mitsurugi Yummy, can trivially make Herald thanks to the level 1 monsters and level 2 synchros. Combining this with Shamisen's Samsara Sorrow Cat, a level 3 tuner that can shuffle a synchro back to the extra deck to special summon itself, means you can make Herald search for Habakiri, shuffle back Herald, and then incorporate its Omni-Negate and Floodgate effect into your end board. Habakiri is also a target for pre-preparation of rites, which will retrieve both it and Mitsurugi Mirror to the hand, which actually raises your ceiling further. Habakiri is a monstrous card that seemed to be made as revenge for all the times the community mocked TCG original archetypes. If you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays, you better get accustomed to seeing this card. And at number 4, we have Mathmech Circular. This is a level 4 Cyberse, which allows you to send one Mathmech monster, except another copy of itself, from your deck to the graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. But you can only attack with a singular monster the turn you use the effect. Lastly, if you normal or special summon a Mathmech monster while this card is on the field, you can add a Mathmech spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. To call this entry a Mathmech support card would be an understatement. Like most Cyberse cards, Mathmech Circular function as support for the entire Cyberse type. The power of this card begins with its cost actually being an upside. Even if you have an interaction, you cannot stop Circular from sending one Mathmech to the graveyard. The most common target for this is Mathmech Sigma, who can then special summon itself from the graveyard if you do not control a monster in the extra monster zone. By entering the field, it will trigger Circular's search for Mathmech Equation, another extender. With this one combo, you can treat the entire Cyberse type as accessible tools. From Salamangreat to Malice, anything is possible with Circular. Even its supposed downside of only being able to attack with a singular monster can be easily circumvented by link climbing to Axis Kotaker via Transkotaker for a 3000 attack boost and an update jammer to grant it a double attack. This card is a unique case where it only improved as more Cyberse cards were released. The Mathmech deck managed to keep evolving with superior extenders and boss monsters. In its most basic form, Mathmech endboards consisted of Heat Soul for extra draws, backed up by Super Factorial, which could, on your opponent's turn, Xe summon into a Prime Mathmech Laplacian, which rips apart your opponent's board and hand while also acting as a negate. As more cards are released, the deck gained access to Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid, Neo Tempest Terahertz, or Firewall Dragon Singularity. Both are amazing boss monsters, which, again, are accessible off of a single Circular resolving. The TCG eventually banned Circular for a while after its release due to the sheer strength of the card, and it was only allowed to return recently. Currently, Circular is limited in both the TCG and OCG, significantly hampering the engine's power due to the requirement of running other Mathmech monsters and spells, but we have never stopped receiving Cyberse cards, so who knows what the future holds. And at number 3, we have Phantom of Yubel. This card is a level 9 Dark Fiend that can only be summoned by shuffling its materials, 1 Yubel monster, and 1 Fiend with 0 attack and defense from hand, graveyard, or field back into the deck. It cannot be used as a fusion material, and possesses the standard Yubel effect. Cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage from battles involving it. Most importantly, when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can tribute this card to make the effect become your opponent destroys 1 Yubel monster in their hand, deck, or field. Phantom of Yubel is a unique contact fusion. With the right materials in your opening hand, you can start your turn by shuffling the materials and placing a negate on the field immediately. This created situations where you were insulated against Droll Lockbird, and the opponent was forced to either activate Mulcharmy Fuwalos in the standby phase, or risk it being rendered useless on the first action of the turn. Another interesting utility is that while the negate is once per turn, the special summon is not, letting Yubel decks easily use this to link climb as well. The release of Phantom of Yubel was the catalyst that coalesced the Yubel support from Phantom Nightmare into a viable meta strategy. Unchained, Soul Lord of Yama requiring any 2 fiends meant that you had a smooth bridge into Unchained, with the destruction effects allowing your Yubels to float too. There was also the Dark Beckoning Beast engine, as it was another 0/0 fiend that could act as a starter and retrieve opening of the Spear Gates, which can also reborn any Yubel card. Finally, guess who else is Fiend? The Fiendsmiths, and similarly to Yama, you could access them off of 2 monsters by going into Moon of the Closed Heavens. The deck could put out one of the strongest end boards in recent years, with Phantom, Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, Varadus the Final Bringer of End Times, Unchained Soul of Rage, and even Fiendsmith Desiree. Thankfully, the strategy was eventually hit by the ban list, starting with Phantom being limited to 1, and concluding with Moon being banned. And at number 2, we have Sky Striker Ace 0. This is a Link 2 with 2000 attack that takes any 2 Sky Striker Ace monsters as its materials. On special summon, it grabs you any Sky Striker spell from your deck or graveyard. Also, as a quick effect, it can tribute itself to special summon 1 Sky Striker Ace Ray and 1 Sky Striker Ace Rose from your deck and or graveyard. Then you can destroy 1 card in the field, but you can only use 1 of these effects per turn. Sky Striker has been kind of competitively viable more or less ever since its release. The deck is very spell focused, and most of the cards rewarding you for having 3 or more spells in your graveyard. The best way to exemplify this though is through Engage, possibly one of the best searcher cards ever released, as not only does it search for any Sky Striker card from your deck, it draws you a card if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, and is not once per turn. The archetype was so popular it even received its own manga, and with it came multiple new waves of support. These were all fairly mediocre at first, focusing either on extension or bigger link monsters, but they generally failed when it came to competitive success. Sky Striker Ace 0 succeeded by amplifying the deck's strengths, rather than attempting to reinvent the playstyle. It can search any spell you need and function as multiple interruptions. Keep in mind that while 0 is a Link 2, Ray can use her tribute effect to cheat it out of the extra deck off of a single card. This means you can use 0 to search for your Engage on the first turn, and leave it on the field for destruction effects to interrupt during your opponent's turn. Another benefit of Sky Striker A0 was making the Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage OTK even easier, as if you summon 0 and grab Linkage, this is already over 8,000 damage on an empty board. Sky Striker is a solid deck with multiple tops in both the TCG and OCG. The deck is very adaptable and generally only gets better as more staple spells are released. While Sky Striker A0 is not the only strong piece of support the deck received, it is difficult to argue she was not the singular most important card to return the deck to meta status. And at number 1, we have Branded Fusion. This is a normal spell that lets you fuse any monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material, using exactly 2 monsters from your hand, deck, or field as material, but it then locks you out of the extra deck for the turn except for fusions. When discussing the type of support Konami releases, it does not take long to realize they pick favorites. The deck in question here could have multiple cards on this list, but it's best to highlight the one that started it all. Cards that summon by utilizing materials from the deck existed before this. 3 years prior, we received Fusion Destiny, and even further back, there was Shadow Fusion. Still, Fusion Destiny at least locked you into Dark Hero monsters, a pitiful pool of options outside of Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. For Shadow Fusion, you needed your opponent to control a monster to use materials from the deck, essentially preventing you from setting your deck on turn 1. Branded Fusion packs a single restriction, but it is entirely a relatively meaningless one if you're running a fusion deck, making it the ideal card to resolve when going both first and second. But what is a good fusion spell without an equally good fusion monster to summon? In the same structure deck Branded Fusion was released in, we also got Mirror Jade the Ice Blade Dragon. This is a level 8 Dark Fusion which can, as a quick effect, send one fusion monster from your X deck to the graveyard that mentions Fallen of Albaz as a material to banish one monster on the field. As the norm for powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards, the cost is actually an upside, as it lets you dump monsters that search for extra interruptions later like Branded in Red, or the currently banned Branded Expulsion. Mirror Jade also possesses the effects that if it leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase. This last effect is insidious. Triggering during the end phase means that you need to have a response the moment it activates, otherwise there's nothing you can do about the end phase effect. That last effect also has a unique trait of working through monsters that are immune to activated effects, letting Mirror Jade even remove towers like Experience Noir and Chaos Angel in a pinch. Still, activating a Branded Fusion did not simply get you to Mirror Jade. You needed to go through Albion and Lubellion first, whose materials are Fallen of Albaz plus any light or dark monster. In practice, this means your Branded Infusion also lets you Foolish Burial any monster of those two types. The deck has access to a variety of good targets internally, like Despian Tragedy and Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous, but it does not stop there. Fairy Tale Snow was the light of choice to dump back when Branded Fusion was released, but there was a long list of good cards to send to the graveyard with it. This utility also allowed many decks to use Branded Fusion as an engine, from dumping Low, Tears, or Draco Tales. As long as it's an archetype that does not mind being fusion locked, it's fair game. In its own deck, a single Branded Fusion alone would often set up multiple Mirror Jade activations, as it's not a hard once per turn, as well as Guardian Chimera setups. That was until a bit later when we got Albion the Sanctifier Dragon, which changed the combo route slightly. Instead, you'd be giving your opponent a Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, which locks your opponent out of special summoning entirely the moment it hits their field. The Gimmick Puppet support got some of their cards limited, but the one time a Gimmick Puppet card was actually banned, it was all because of Branded Fusion. I do not think it's an exaggeration to say Branded Fusion has set a new standard for what can be considered a great fusion spell, and that's why it deserves a #1 spot on this list.